Now, polio is a highly infectious viral disease that invades the nervous system and can also cause irreversible paralysis if not taken care of. Unfortunately, 90% of these cases or of people with polio will not have any symptoms, and if they will have, then they will be mild symptoms. And again, to some bad news is that last week Nairobi was also put on high alert following a report on a strain polio that has been reported in the country. So that is what we are discussing today, polio. And to help us just understand what causes polio and if it can be prevented and also treated, we have Wycliffe Martini, who is a polio expert and also a representative. Welcome back. You're watching My Doctor Show. My name is Purity Museo, and today we're talking about polio, a very infectious disease that can affect one's nervous system and also cause paralysis within hours. Talk to us. The call line is 0791478990, on Twitter at Ebru TV Kenya, the hashtag My Doctor. And now help me welcome my special guest. Next to me we have Rehab Wambui, right? And she is a polio survivor. Next to her is Wycliffe Martini, who is a representative from the Ministry of Health, yes. Right? All right, to just help us understand what polio is, and also with Rehab to just help us understand how it is like to battle with polio or to be a polio survivor. Welcome to My Doctor Show, both of you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and if we would start with you, Wycliffe, to just tell us what exactly is polio.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation and to share with Kenyans what's polio. Polio is a viral disease, which is within the environment, and mostly we get it through consumption of contaminated water or food. Mm-hmm. So it's a viral disease and it's very battle and spreads very fast within the community where people have been infected. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And staying with you, Wycliffe, it's believed that within hours it can cause paralysis. Maybe you could just help us understand how it spreads to one's nervous system after infections. And you've said that it's infected through contaminated water, right? Yes. We'll be looking at the causes, but before then, help us understand how it's transmitted.
Yeah, so when in a population of people, we know we stay in a mixture of environment. And so some of these viruses, they are available in the environment. And especially if it is excreted or it comes out of an individual who is infected. And when you are infected, first your body starts by consuming either through water or food. And when you consume, it goes into your intestine. It goes through the stomach to the intestine. During the digestive processes in the intestine now, it enters the body through the system, through the blood system, and then it's taken around the body by the blood, and then it enters into the nervous system. That is the central point where it is deposited. So when it enters into your nervous system, now it causes the complication, it causes the infection now. And that is why it now, when it affects the nervous system, it destroys the nerves, which now assist you in movement, especially the nerves which supplies to the hands or the legs and even the spinal cord.
Okay.
Yes.
And you'll be telling us the time span for which the transmission occurs and how bad the complications for polio. But before then, let's now talk with Rehab. Rehab, maybe you could tell us, when were you diagnosed with polio?
Thank you so much again.
Yeah, welcome.
And from what my mama tells me,
right,
I was diagnosed with polio at an age of 1 year, 2 months.
Right.
I was able to walk at an early age of 7 months, and I could join other kids to school as my mama went to work. Mm-hmm. She was a casual laborer, so she could leave me at home. I could join other kids to school by then because I was the youngest by then.
Right.
And after I was 1 year, 2 months, my mama came back from work and found me, I had flu, just a normal flu.
Right.
So she decided to take me to hospital. And from then, I believe that is when I acquired the polio virus, because from then I never stood again. I got paralysis from here, hip, the lower part of the body.
Okay.
I could not stand, I could not sit, I could not walk. And that is how my life started with polio.
Okay, and
Yes.
you'll be telling us more about the journey with polio.
Right.
But Wycliffe, just help us understand who are at a risk of getting polio in terms of age, gender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For everyone is at risk of polio, no matter the gender. And for the age, we are talking about children, especially below 5 years.
Right.
From the time they are born, especially when they are exposed to the environment, until when they are at least 5 years and below. And this because of their body are not well developed to create that barrier or defense mechanism to guard against these polioviruses when they consume. And we know that these children under 5 years are so active and they collect everything and put in their mouth or they drink anything. So based on the environment where they are based on, they collect some of these viruses and other diseases. But as a result of that, so when they consume through whichever means or they eat them through the environment, then now they can get infected. So we are talking about children who are not vaccinated, or if they are vaccinated, they have not gotten enough vaccination that is guarantees their safety or their immunity. It develops to the expected levels where they cannot be infected at any one time.
Okay. Today on My Doctor Show, we are talking matters polio, what causes it, can it be prevented, and what is the treatment process like. We also have Rehab Wambui, who is also taking us through her journey with polio. Call us live. The number is 0791 478 Use the hashtag MyDoctor at Ebru TV Kenya on Twitter. Wycliffe, just now help us understand some of the symptoms for polio.
Yes, like my sister Rahab said, it can start like a flu-like symptom.
Right.
There is no specific signs that you say, okay, it is a real polio. By the time you see the signs, it is now the complication are set in. So there are the normal signs like fever, like vomiting, like headache, stiffness of the neck, whereby you want to move your neck sideways, you feel that it's not moving. Yeah, and at a very serious stage, when the complication are set in, is when you want to use your limbs, that is hands or legs, you no longer use it. You give the person or the child a cup, for example, you want to give tea, and then unfortunately you see the hands are not mobile again. So those are the complications after getting the first signs and symptoms.
Right.
Yes.
And Rehab, I know you were diagnosed when you were really little, really young, but did you, when you grew up, did you maybe try to inquire from, I know right now you're a polio campaigner, a champion. Yeah. When you grew up, did you want to inquire from your parents what are some of the symptoms that you expressed other than the complications that came with the disease?
Yeah, I really wanted to know what happened and what transpired. Because when you are told that you are walking normally like any other child, and here you are on a wheelchair, because my 3 early years after the acquiring the polio virus, I used a wheelchair to move.
Right.
And by then I could not ask questions, because at least I was not able to accept that this is my state.
Right.
My parents were not able to accept also, because it was a challenge to them. So later in the years, I was able to join a special school. So I met other kids who are more or less with physical disability. So I asked my mother what happened, and she told me after she took me to hospital, and after I was diagnosed with the polio virus, I had to go through some injections. So during the process of getting the injections, I was referred to KNH, because by then, those early years of 70s, the only place you could be well taken care of was KNH. So I was taken to Kenyatta National Hospital, and that is where they got the report that this was polio and I would never walk again. So to them, it was not easy It wasn't. To me also it was not easy. But when I joined others, I realized I was not alone. And I had to face the bull by the horn.
Right.
Yeah, I had to
Rehab,
accept, yeah.
tell us the stigma that come with such a condition that may lead you not to walk again, paralysis. Did you face stigma from your friends and also maybe your family, your close family members, or how was it like?
I'd say, I hate saying this, but this is the truth. I faced stigma from my own dad, because when he got the report that I would never walk again, he told my mother that she was not ready to live with a child who was physically challenged, yeah? Handicapped. By then, they used to call us handicaps. And the reasons were, it's either an abominable thing, or it was either from the side of the mother. Basically, what happens in most families, because that is the case to date, when a child acquires a disability, most men, majority of men, the fathers now, do not accept that child. So it came to a point when my mother was forced to walk out of that home. And because she had to seek some medical assistance for me, I had to be attending some therapy, and that was in Nairobi. And my home is in Kiambu County. So my mother had to walk out from that home, and it reached a point she could not afford money to take me for the therapies in Nairobi. So she had to camp in Nairobi. She became a street mother. By then she was pregnant with my the child who is after me, and she also had me. So we became a street family, my mom. And fortunately, where I used to go for therapy, it was by then called Bora Road, IPDK, that is behind Akamba bus. By then it was behind Akamba bus. Right now it is at the ABC place. They moved to ABC place. So when they realized that this woman has not been washing, the child has not been changing, they realized there's a problem. So they brought her in. When she told them her problem, they brought her in, and she was given a room at the facility. And that is how I was able to go through the process of therapy. And I was able to move now from the stage of a wheelchair, and I could go with an assistance of crutches and calipers.
All right.
Yes.
That's so unfortunate. Wycliffe, maybe you may help us address stigma that come with polio, because polio, there is paralysis that comes with it, and we'll be looking at whether these symptoms can be reversed once detected early. But first, help us understand or address stigma that comes with polio. There are other families out there going through what her family, her mom went through. Please help us.
Okay, thank you very much. It's an unfortunate situation because we are in the country, we have one national immunization champion and 47 other champions, including Rahaf. And we have a dialogue with all the champions. And really, there are sad stories they share with us. It's not really, it's not bad or process. But unfortunately, because stigma, at the end of the day, I could say that whoever is providing stigma to these young people or even the elderly people, at the end of the day, each one of us you might be a victim at any one time.
Right.
So it's important for Kenyans to embrace that the unfortunate situation has occurred, and the main thing is really to look for solution to help the victims.
Right.
But again, to embrace that each one of us can be a victim of that circumstance.
Okay.
If not, you have not been disabled through polio, you can get another disability through any other means. But for polio, if I can talk about polio itself, at the end of the day, it's not justified for this country to continue getting children who are disabled because of polio. Why? Because we have a life-saving vaccine, which children are offered from birth, at 6 weeks, at 10 weeks, at 14 weeks. We have those vaccines. And then we keep another additional time or opportunity during the campaigns we are doing. So we give these children an opportunity. And now there's a lot of development going on. And you can see 3 years ago, we introduced the inactivated polio vaccine, which is an injection at 14 weeks. It is to supplement the effectiveness of the oral polio, and so that when the child gets both of these vaccines at 14 weeks, subsequently it strengthens the immunity of this child.
Right.
And then subsequently when they get the vaccine during the campaigns, then you are sure about your child getting a lifelong immunity. And then we don't need to see many of these children getting disabled and
right.
then getting stigma within the community.
Okay.
So what I can say is that to end stigma in polio, the first thing is for families, for parents, fathers, mothers, and any other the leaders in the community.
Right.
We join hands and then ensure that we vaccinate our children all and every time. During, if they are under 1 year, they need to be vaccinated to be up to date with their immunization schedule. And if we are robust with polio supplemental campaigns, let us come out in large numbers and vaccinate them.
Okay.
Because that is the only way to get rid of this polio and disability.
Okay, and we'll be talking more about the vaccine, especially the campaign that we just began last week. There's some, call us live at 0791478990. In studio, we have Wycliffe Martini, who is a polio expert and also a representative from the Ministry of Health. We also as well have Rehab Wambui, right, who is a polio survivor, just telling us or taking us through her journey with polio. And before we get to chat with Rehab once again, you could just take us through some of the risk factors now for polio. What are the predisposing factors to polio?
Yeah, thank you very much. The risk factors to polio is really, it starts with us as an individual, as a family, and as a community. One of the risk factors is that when your child is born today, and you don't take the step to ensure that the child after being born is vaccinated, because we vaccinate at day 0, meaning when the child is delivered today, before they go home, they should get that vaccine. Even if in some communities where they are delivered at home, which we don't encourage as a ministry, they should be brought to the facility for polio vaccination within the shortest time possible, and especially within 2 weeks. But even if you don't get within 2 weeks, but immediately, once it's born, the vaccines are available in our health facilities, they should be brought for vaccination.
Right.
So the highest group is anyone who is not vaccinated. For whichever reason, if you don't vaccinate that because you are buying time, maybe the facility is far, you have a lot of work you are doing, or maybe as a result, the other challenge is cultural practices,
right.
and especially culture and come up late with religion. Some guys in this country have said, no, because of religious issues, I'm not vaccinating. Yes, that is a dangerous trend. And we have a good number of people whom, as a ministry, we are still dialoguing, using the immunization champions, using all the community leaders. We are engaging them so that they can be able to see the sense and importance of vaccination. Because when they don't vaccinate because of religious issues, religion will not be there to assist your child when they become disabled. They will not be there. It's you who will be bearing the burden of really managing that child, managing that disability. And you see you have really demoralized, you have really finished the future of that child. So unvaccinated children, those communities who have issues of saying they are on religious background, those are the major issues, which we are, as a country, we think they are the major setback to vaccination of our children, and ensuring that all the children are vaccinated in good time so that they can be able to live a good future.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, and we'll be getting to learn more about especially the complications that come with polio. But then maybe Rehab, at your time, was there enough, maybe was there enough awareness on vaccination for polio, and maybe you could emphasize more on why you think it's important for every mother out there to go and have this vaccination for their children?
Oh, well, I can say those time awareness was, I think, very minimal, very, very minimal. So, and also, I believe there were a lot of hardships, livelihood hardships. So, our parents mainly gave birth to us at home, and others had no time to to take the kids to hospital for the vaccination if it was there, because they were looking for food fed for the families, and it was the core mandate of a mother or a father by then. And the awareness was very minimal, because I think they did not see the dangers as we are seeing them now. And my driving force is that in my village, during my time, I think like 3 of us from the neighborhood were infected by the polio virus at the same time, which we didn't know, but I came to learn later, because when I see them, I ask my mom, how comes both of us or the 3 of us got polio at the same time?
Right.
She could not tell me the reason, because according to them, it was either witchcraft, it was something to do with genetical. Those were the beliefs by then. But when I got this knowledge on polio virus, and I knew it could be contaminated through food, through water, and when it infects a place and it is not taken care of, you are not vaccinated, it is possible to infect 2 or more in the same area. So I knew it was the case. And that is what motivated me to champion or to create awareness on the dangers of polio, because the journey has not been easy. No school could accept a child who cannot walk. The schools that were around, I believe it was just 1 school by then. And it was like, let's say 7 kilometers from home. How do I walk for 7 kilometers? How does my mama carry me for 7 kilometers to school daily in the morning and pick me in the evening?
Right.
It was hard. So we had 2 special schools by then, one in Kisumu and the other one in Joytown. We had Joytown in Thika and Kisumu Joyland. So my mom tried to take me to Joytown, and it was not easy.
Right.
She went to Joytown for 8 years, and this is a girl who is growing. So
Your school was also affected. You began your school late, right?
yes, I began my school late, and it was affected because the numbers that were coming to join the school were huge, and they could not admit all of us because of the facilities, and because also by then the need of a special school was not very well embraced by the government. There was a lot of discrimination, I can say, by then. So this was a school that was sponsored by the Canadian government, Salvation Army. So they were the ones who introduced the need to have a school like this, a facility like this in Kenya. So it was a challenge to get a space in that school. And when my mama got a space in the school, it was also a challenge because there were a lot of things that I was required to join the school with.
Right.
It comes with a lot of package, a big package. You have to carry soaps and everything. You had to start your life in that school. You had to bring in every luggage that was required, which was difficult for my mom also. But the community came in and assisted, and they saw me join the school.
Okay.
Yeah, but I can say the journey was not easy.
It was not easy.
It was not easy.
Right.
Yeah.
And you'll be actually taking us through the complications for polio. I think you're better placed. But let's get from Wycliffe. You've told us that polio is it's a viral infectious disease, but now just help us understand how it's spread from one person to another. Is it through contact? Is it through sharing a meal? Or how is it spread?
Okay, thank you very much. I think as I pick up from where Sister Rab has left it, that in their neighborhood, herself and 2 more, you are 3.
Yes.
Yeah, we were 3.
You are 3, 2 more.
Yeah.
I don't know, how are you close with these 2 children?
It's like 3 homesteads.
Were you
Left 3 homesteads
Okay.
left, yeah.
So you could stay normally within
Yes.
the home
Yes.
frequently?
We could pray together, we could interact.
Yeah.
You know, I used to go to the nearest nursery school or daycare, so we could go together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happens in polio is that we have said, we call it picohoral, that you have to eat it through your mouth, and then it has to come out from you again. It goes to either the water, and then when we go to the river, we collect the water. And since the environment, and I can see it when the sanitation is not very good, we are not using toilets, latrines to ensure that we deposit our pieces properly. Then, like currently during the rainy season, many waste products are going to the river. And then when we patch our water, and even during the childhood stages when you are looking after the cows, the goats, children will be swimming in the river, they'll be swallowing some water,
Right.
they'll be drinking water in the river. You see, this water is not treated at any way. So they will be consuming the virus. Again, even during the homestead, after the rains are there, there's those water which are collecting in some ponds. And then children really like playing with those water. In the process, there's some which they consume. That is the other way of the virus enters into the body.
Right.
We have food. We can prepare the food. We have not observed the good personal hygiene, unhygiene, and others. We have a lot of flies coming in. They touch on our food, and then these flies are stuck on the stool or the pieces outside there. And maybe among the 3 children you are talking about, one of them could be infected. And then since maybe it defecated outside there, the flies brought in the virus into the food, and then you consume through food, or it was swept into the river, and then you drink in form of water, especially when it's not treated. So when you consume now it starts multiplying in your system, and then now that is how some enters into the body, it develops the disease. And then some you continue going into defecating or passing stool, you continue passing the virus. From the day, around 3 days after infection, up to around a month or more, depending on how defense mechanism in the body will fight it. And then some people become carriers. Carriers means you will continue shedding the virus in your body, although you don't show signs and symptoms, but you will continue infecting the environment through water or through food.
Right.
And then people will continue consuming. If we use our toilets properly,
okay,
that
those
everyone
are now
is
some
going,
of the preventive
then
measures.
yes,
Okay, we'll be getting to talk about the preventive measures and also how to treat them. When we come back, we will be answering the question, how do you prevent and treat polio? Remember, we'll also be receiving your calls live. Use the number 0791 478 990. Just stay with us. We will be back after this quick breather. Welcome to the second and the last part of my doctor show. My name is Purity Musel, and today in studio we have Rehab Wambui, who is a polio survivor, to just help us take us through her journey with polio. And also we have Wycliffe Martini from the Ministry of Health to just help us also understand how to treat and prevent polio. Remember, during this session we'll also be picking your calls live. Welcome back. You're watching My Doctor Show, and our topic of discussion today is polio. What is polio? How do you treat and prevent it? Those are the questions, right, we'll be answering during this session. We'll also be picking your calls live. Use the number 0791 478 990. You can also use the hashtag MyDoctor to talk to us on Twitter at Ebru TV Kenya. Welcome both of you to the second part of My Doctor.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we could start with you, Rehab. Just take us through some of the complications that come as you grow up that come with polio.
As we said, polio causes paralysis.
Right.
And when you get paralysis, you are not able to do things normally.
Right.
Definitely you have to have a lot of handicaps or challenges on the way. So, like mobility. Because polio normally is physical, causes physical disability. So on mobility issues becomes a challenge, and in this case, you cannot do things as other children your age do. You cannot walk to school, you cannot perform normal duties, house chores like others, you cannot go farming, you cannot, so many things, you are hindered from doing so many things. And also, when it comes to education, majority of us who have polio or have had physical challenge are not able to access education. It's very expensive.
I can help you find education options.
And why am I saying it is expensive? When the government gave us free education, that was free primary education.
And Rehab, if you could just allow me to cut you short,
Yeah.
there's someone who is calling us. Maybe they want to learn more about this.
Right.
You'll allow me to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello? Hello? I think we've lost the caller. We hope he's going to call back. All right,
Okay.
go ahead.
So we are not enjoying the facility of free education as persons with disabilities because special school or special education is very expensive. We always say that we are not special, but we have special needs. So when it comes to getting to school, much as the government is encouraging integration, majority of us cannot go to normal schools.
Right.
Ranging from accessibility, the location of the schools. Okay, if this is a challenge to me, a small stair like this is a challenge. I need somebody to help me. Somebody on a wheelchair cannot access stairs, cannot accept a steep area. And also, when we talk about the toilets, sanitation in the schools that we are seeing around us, they do not factor in children with disabilities. So they cannot use the toilets that are being used by other kids. And when you go to special schools, they are very expensive. Why am I saying this? Because you need a house mother or a caretaker for that child to push her around, to push him around, to cross to and fro. You also need some special attention to that child. Majority, cannot take themselves for toilets, so they need somebody to assist on this. So they charge for those services because the government does not provide for such services. So I can say it is not easy to bring up a child who has a physical challenge.
Right.
Yes, because all these require special attention, which comes in with a cost, which nobody is ready to facilitate.
Right.
And most of the parents, and I'm sorry to say this because this is the truth, majority of parents who have children with special needs, I think poverty and disability are intertwined. 70% of parents who have special needs children or cases are poor. And also, even if you are working, like now we talk of mothers who have these young kids who have acquired polio or who are paralyzed, they are not able to do anything. They are not productive because you have to attend to that child 24/7. Nobody is ready to take care of that child. Even a house help.
Right.
When a house helps come in and finds a child like that, they are not ready to take care of that child. Because this is not a child who can assist you feed herself or himself. This is not a child who can be able to say, I'm going to the toilet. So with those complications, there is a big challenge, and especially for the mothers. I always say for the mothers, because they are the ones who take care of these kids. And also, I would want to challenge the government to put a special attention on children with special needs and their caregivers. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And we'll be getting to learn more about, because we have a representative from the Ministry of Health, what they are doing, the guidelines there are for children with special need, and we'll narrow down to polio. But Wycliffe, just take us through some of the long-term complications for polio before we get to the treatment process.
Yeah, so most of we say when with good vaccination we shall not get into this polio thing. And again, a good percentage of people, around 5%, will result into long-term complications, but most of them will work with the disease. So the main of the long-term complication, I think, as Raf has indicated, is really it disables you completely. It disconnects you from the rest of the world. One, if you are, most of the polio, it affects the nervous system, meaning now if it will involve the arms, the legs, or the spinal cord, then you will never be mobile for life. It means you need some to be aided in order to be mobile. You need either crutches, if it is not very bad. You need wheelchair in severe cases, especially that has caused the lower limbs paralysis and also the spinal cord. If it destroys the spinal cord, then it's really very bad. And you see most of these people in wheelchairs and others. And now, the cost implication of getting servicing, the diapers, the wheelchair for you to get one, and even to exchange the crutches is very expensive. Two, most of the well-paying jobs these days is something you do physically. You talk about playing, running. Somebody runs for like Usain Bolt. He runs for only 10 seconds, and he gets millions of money. Another one is playing. People like Ronaldo. They are good players out there.
But once you have polio, you cannot
Once
do
you have
all
polio,
that,
you are
right?
disconnected. There's nothing. You'll be a beggar.
Right.
You are begging people to assist you move from one point to another one. You are begging literally to be taken to the toilet. You are begging literally to be prepared food and others. So those are some of the long-term complications which comes from a simple disease we can prevent as an individual, as a community. But now, because of our ignorance, because of other issues, we propagate the problem.
Okay.
Yes.
And Wycliffe, let's get to the treatment process for polio. Is there hope for someone who's, when polio has been detected early, do we have hope for that particular child or a person, or are the complications or implications the same way as, is there a difference when it's detected early and late? Or once you get polio, then you should get ready for all these complications?
For polio, we say there's no treatment, there's no cure. So we don't need to wait until we say you have polio, then we assist you, because already the damage has occurred. Because
Wycliffe, make me understand, once you're detected with polio, then there's no cure for that?
There's no cure.
Right.
Absolutely no cure. Because at the end of the day, it will now depend on the number of the virus which has entered the body and the extent of the damage they have caused to the body. So when it is detected early, then we shall institute physiotherapy and manage the child or the person according to the symptoms they come up with. But mostly physiotherapy and rehabilitation therapy.
Right.
That is the only thing. We rehabilitate you. We try to manage the effects. We manage the damage which has been caused. So we really not, as a country or as a Kenyans or as our good people, we don't want to say, let us wait for us to look for polio so that we can manage.
Right.
You are managing, already that person is destroyed or that child is destroyed. So I would not wish us to discuss about rehabilitating or managing. Let us talk about preventing it.
Right.
Because it is easy. We say prevention is better than cure.
Right.
Yes. So the main thing is really to prevent the polio before it gets the person or it gets the child.
Right.
Than now waiting to say we want to rehabilitate. You will be taking this child to physiotherapy maybe once a week or even more, depending on how severely the child or the person has suffered the effects or the complication. Yes.
Right, and Wycliffe, if there is no, because you've said there is no cure for polio, but again for a family like of rehab where you're not well off, if there's no rehabilitation that has taken place, can it cause death?
There are two aspects here. Rehabilitation, one is, yes, we know based on circumstances, polio might come in. A few people might get it, but we don't expect with good vaccination. With good immunization of our children, we don't expect any polio. And that is why, significantly in this country, you cannot see a lot of disabled children because of the good management of our children by vaccinating them. And then the ministry allocating more money for vaccination activities in this country so that every child gets vaccinated and prevent polio, because we don't want to go to the complication. However, for a few people who have gotten polio, so rehabilitation is very important and to be done routinely, so that you are able to at least capitalize on trying to assist this person to come, trying to ensure that the muscles which has been affected and the nerves start working or start some movement. Yes, and then at least after some time, this person might be rehabilitated to a certain level.
Okay.
It will not come into complete form, but it will depend on how quickly the polio has been gotten.
Okay.
And that's why as a
Wycliffe, would
ministry,
you
we are
kindly-
looking for this polio.
Okay, we'll get to talk about now the guidelines, but can we receive one call? We
Yeah,
have a caller
please.
from Nairobi. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm okay.
Yeah, please, your question.
Okay, swali langu ni hili. Niko na mjunior
Right.
na ako 2 years now. Na alizaliwa akiwa hospitali
Okay.
na naona mkono wake mmoja na mguu mmoja hauna nguvu.
Okay.
So akitembea mguu mmoja ni kama anakanyagia vidole. Yaani ukanyagi chini vizuri. Hiyo ni polio ama?
Oh, asante. Wycliffe, you can answer him.
Anasema ni miaka ngapi?
2 years.
2 years.
Yes.
He has not told us for how long the child has been having the problem, but really we cannot know whether it's polio or not. So what I will assist him is that he needs to go to the nearest facility. For polio, there are various forms of paralysis which can come in. And that is why it's important to go to the nearest facility to see a clinician.
Right.
A clinician will be, when he takes a good history, where the child stays, how he has been fed, how he was born, and now the immunization status of the child up to the time he is.
Okay.
Then we shall be able to know what could be there. And then there are several tests to be taken, including stool. He will take the clinician, if he sees there is a suspicion of polio, he will take stool so that it will be sent to our Cambry, that is our referral laboratory, where it will be diagnosed whether or confirmed whether it is polio or not.
Okay.
So the main message here is for the parent to take the child immediately to the nearest facility, where he will be guided upon the whole procedure.
Okay, right.
Yes.
Rehab, kindly take us through your rehabilitation journey till now.
Okay.
How has it been like, some of the challenges that you have to go through, you know, and is it helping?
I can say this is a process. It's a journey.
Right.
Because as I said, I started on a wheelchair because I became completely paralyzed.
Right.
And I could not walk, I could not sit, could not do anything. So I had to start from a wheelchair because my mom could not carry me all through. But from there, I used to go for therapy. And I could go twice per week. That was Tuesdays and Thursdays. The reason why my mom had to stay in the streets because she could not take me from my home area to Nairobi twice per week. It was very expensive for her. And after the therapy, it has been
And what are
hard.
some costs for the therapy? It was free of charge?
During then, it was very free.
Oh,
In
okay.
fact, they used even to give us a milk, but it was facilitated by donors. Unlike now, when the donors, most of the donors are withdrawn from these facilities.
Right.
But by then, it was fully facilitated by the donors. Even the school I was in, there were donors from outside the country who used to come during holidays. We had exchange programs. They could come from UK, from US, and they could assist us on how to be able to move. We used to have a therapy center in the school, and we could be assisted. Every morning we could wake up very early and get to the therapy room, and we could do exercises pertaining to your kind of disability.
Right.
And I can say it has really helped. And as Martin has said here, that we need to have rehabilitation, we need to have therapy centers, which is very minimal. And where we have them, in county levels, there are no facilities.
Right.
And if there are facilities, also the clinicians who are there, majority of them are not at par. I'm sorry to say this, but they are not at par. because they'll come, see your child, advise you to take to Kenyatta, advise you to take somewhere else, which is a bit difficult for most of the parents.
Right.
So for me, my mom persisted. I had goodwill from the community, and also because we had donors from outside who came in and decided to take up the children. So I had sponsors from outside who used to assist me, and that is how I was able to get from one stage to another. Because as I can say, my ability to walk like this and to wear normal shoes is after I finished my O-levels.
Right.
Before I finished my O-levels, I used to be on calipers, both legs, crutches. But I went for a operation, bone operation in Kijabe. By then we had a Dr. Bransford who came to assist to see whether he can change our state. I had a club foot. One of my foot was a club foot. And through the operation, I was able now to stand and I could wear normal shoes.
Right.
So these are process which requires a lot of money, a lot of time and commitment. And I wish our government could come in,
Right.
help these parents, because we have so many of my age who are still on bed. Unless they are assisted to go out for sun and to be taken in back to the house, it's very difficult for them to move.
Okay.
Yes.
Wycliffe, how do we prevent polio? Kindly.
Preventing polio starts with me and you. So I can keep an history that before we prevent polio, first of all, the Ministry of Health is looking for polio all the time. So we look in two ways. One, all the clinicians, all the healthcare workers have been sensitized to look for polio. For any child who will present with, maybe the parents can look, in case their child was okay, at least their child less than 15 years, he was okay, playing well, eating well, doing the normal activities well. And then all of a sudden, like maybe if it paralyzes the hand will be like this one. It will not be, you give the cup, for example, he shows interest of wanting to touch the cup, but he cannot move because the hand is really paralyzed. So the nerves supplying that area is weakened, so he cannot do anything. And the same thing to the legs. So we look for such children. So that, and that's why we tell the community, the public, if you see any child who was playing very well, there is no history of falling down, there is no history of doing any injury, but he is not able to use the legs or the legs well or the hands, or he cannot wake up. It's good to be very suspicious, take to the nearest facility for investigation, whether it's polio or not. That is one. And then recently, for the last 5 years, we have been looking. At times, we don't get these patients or cases in the hospital. Some of them could be within our community, like the way I've said, there are some people who can be carrying the polio virus, but they are not showing signs. So we want to capture this through the environment. So we have been collecting sewage samples. Like in Nairobi, we have around 4 sites. We collect in Esli, we collect in Langata, and any others. We have others in Garissa, Mombasa, Kisumu. We collect routinely every month. Every month we are going to collect the sewage.
Okay.
We take to the lab, we look. So like the current outbreak which we have, it was found in the sewage.
Right.
Meaning there is someone, either a child or even a grown-up person, who is having this polio and is moving around us. We are interacting. We are sharing the water. We are sharing we are sharing everything.
Right.
But again, the polio is with us.
Okay.
So for us to prevent this disease, the first step and one which we know it will assist is vaccination.
Vaccination.
Chanjo ya watoto. That is the only thing. There is an effective, safe vaccine for polio. Once a child is born, they need to start the polio vaccination.
Okay.
Which is given along with the PCG, the one which prevents against the tuberculosis, kifua kikuu. So that is day 0. Once mtoto akizaliwa, they need to get that oral polio. After 6 weeks, they need to get the first dose. After 10 weeks, after another 1 month, 10 weeks, When the child is 2.5 months, they need to get a second dose. When the child is 3.5 months, they need to get a third dose. When they are getting the third dose of oral polio, they are given with an injectable polio vaccine. They work concurrently, and it assists the child to develop a strengthened immunity. The main problem now facing the Ministry of Health and the government is that at the third dose of polio, immunization is not taken seriously by some. We still have a big problem with the members of the public, that we are not ensuring that all our children are vaccinated. Like our status now is that out of 10 children born, 7 of them gets immunization. 3 of them are not vaccinated.
Okay, and that brings us to our next question.
Yes.
Maybe it can be answered by Rehab. Kenya was almost being declared a polio-free country, and then all of a sudden there's a strain of polio. You know, where is the gap? What is not happening? Maybe what have we not done right to ensure that we are totally polio-free country?
My thought
Yes,
about it, yeah.
right.
I think we have a problem on awareness. It was a challenge, and I believe that is why the ministry plus the donors agreed to bring us on board as champions and polio survivors, because unless you create that awareness to the parents that they need to vaccinate their children at an early age, majority were against even the polio chanjo. They were against it. Others do not even allow their children to receive your dose yenye wanapewa. They were against it. So unless somebody like me, who is a survivor and is here now at this age, talks to a mother and tells the mother the essence of that, to stop or to prevent the child from being what I am today, they could not see the sense. That is one of the causes. The other one, sanitation. As we see our country right now, especially Nairobi, it's all over the news, there is a challenge in sanitation. Cleanliness in our towns, in our urban areas, is a big challenge. I don't know what is not happening or what is happening.
Right.
Yeah. So I think the administration is not careful of our environment, or I don't know, but that could be another cause. The other cause is that our children, when we give birth to our children, you don't vaccinate them, then others, the street children and others, they are not being taken to school. Nobody takes care of them.
Right.
So wherever they mingle with others, there's no place for, there is no sanitation, good sanitation. So the toiletry, the virus can be disposed anywhere,
Right.
through feces, and it can be taken, contaminated through the water, through the food that we are taking.
Okay.
So I think that could be a major cause. Yeah.
And I'll be getting back to you for a parting shot, especially encouraging mothers out there who have
Right.
children with the same problem. But Wycliffe, in maybe a minute, you could tell us what the government is doing, especially with the reported case of the outbreak of polio right now. What are some of the guidelines that you've now put in place to contain this crisis?
Okay, thank you very much. So, as I continue to where Raf, so vaccination is the key thing. 2, is just to strengthen this issue about hygiene. All of us, across the country, we need to ensure that we use latrines when we are going to relieve ourselves. 3 is ensuring that we cook our meals well and protect from flies and others. And then boiling or treating our water, so that in the process of you are treating the water, you are ensuring that the virus is killed. Yeah. So in case you have not vaccinated. The other thing is that the Ministry of Health, with the help of partners, have started a roadmap. 1 is to strengthen immunization, especially in areas where we still have challenges of all children accessing immunization. There's a strengthening capacity at the national level and a county level. The vaccines are there. The government has allocated enough funds to procure vaccines.
It's going to take place in all the counties in the country?
I'm saying, yeah, for the routine immunization. That is the first thing. We need to ensure that all our children, every time they are born, they get the required vaccination. That is the first thing the government is giving a lot of emphasis. And it has provided vaccines. There's no stock out. So it's upon parents now and all the other players, the community leaders, the county government, and all, and even religious and other partners. We should ensure that our children get the vaccination they are required.
All right. Thank you so
Two.
much, Weekly.
Okay.
All right. Maybe you can wind up.
Okay. The other thing is that we did a campaign that just concluded yesterday. We had 92% coverage. We didn't reach all the children as expected because of, at least we had some refusals in Nairobi, especially from our Somali community, our Somali friends. We need to ensure that we need to still tell them that it's important to vaccinate every time if we are going to appoint our children get vaccination.
Okay.
We have 2 other rounds to ensure that we reach all the high-risk areas, which will be done in June and July, we are going to cover 12 counties. That is Nairobi, Kiambu, we have Kajiado, we have Machakos, we have Kitui, Isiolo, Meru, we have Mandera, Wajir, Garissa, Tana River, Lamu. All these are all the high-risk counties where the vaccination is not doing very well.
Okay.
But we are not saying the other areas are safe, but they need to ensure that they take their children for routine immunization.
Okay.
And then looking for these cases. Any child who is coming with some kind of weaknesses, they report immediately to the next facility so that they are investigated and we are able to prevent better transmission within the communities.
Right, and now we have to wind up. That's all the time we had for the show. Rehab, Wamboi, and Wycliffe Martini, thank you so much for coming. It was really informative conversation we've had. It was also important to have you, Rehab, to just tell our parents how bad polio can be. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Yeah, and that's all the time we had for the show today. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for keeping us company. As always, you can download our previous episodes on our YouTube channel. Simply go to Ebru TV Kenya or Purity Museo and select the episode of your choice. My Doctor Show continues tomorrow. Until then, I'm Purity Museo. Goodbye. Representative from the Ministry of Health will just be telling us, most importantly, some of the guidelines that there are to ensuring that polio is not recorded or is not witnessed among residents in this country. We also have a polio survivor. Her name is Rehab Wamboi, who will just be telling us her experience or taking us through her experience with polio and also when she was infected with this disease. Talk to us. The call line will be displayed right at the bottom of your screen. You can also use the hashtag MyDoctor to talk to us on Twitter at Ebru TV Kenya. But before we start, we want to have a look at what's coming up. My name is Purity Museo and you're watching My Doctor.